everyone, and welcome to the gallery at Penn College, and thank you for coming to this evening's talk. I'm very pleased that we were able to bring this significant exhibition to campus. Criminal traditions are ancient rituals that kill or maim millions of people each year, but are not considered crimes. This exhibition brings awareness to these important human rights issues. The exhibition's curator, Charles Geneck, wrote, "The works included in this exhibition may be interpreted on many levels. Although all are beautiful at face value, this collection is intended to touch the viewer's mind and soul by highlighting the challenges faced by our global community. The hope is that these paintings, drawings, and sculptures will inspire discussion that supports positive social change." Charles Geneck has curated over 60 exhibitions, including other social justice themed exhibits. He holds an MFA in painting from Northern Illinois University and currently teaches fine art and graphic design at Joliet Junior College outside Chicago. Special thanks to Charles for traveling from Chicago to speak tonight. And I'd also like to thank the exhibition founder and executive producer, Cheryl Jefferson, and exhibiting artist Richard Laurent for traveling to Williamsport so they could attend the opening tonight as well. So without further ado, please help me to welcome Charles Geneck.
Hi, thank you. This exhibition couldn't have happened without Penny. It's beautifully put together. I have a tendency, like I've been curating exhibitions for years, and I have a tendency of being a little bit controlling about the way things look. And it's rare that I walk into a space and realize how amazing this, she did an amazing job. So, Penny, please. All right, so the criminal, it's funny because there's so many students here and you're asking all kinds of interesting questions. I also wound up having a conversation with an older couple here tonight, and it was about the work and about, wait a minute, I don't understand, how is this tying to criminal traditions? The whole purpose of this exhibition is to take beautiful art objects and use those as a way of bringing you into a conversation about the horrors, the atrocities that are going on in the world. If the show was just about those horrors and atrocities, you probably wouldn't have shown up, right? Would you agree? Because you don't want to look at ugly things, things that are hideous, things that are haunting. The images that are selected, the works that were created by the artists, they were selected because their work only implies those traditions. There are a few artists that work symbolically. Richard Laurent is one of them. His work is much more about metaphor and symbolism. But he is probably one of the only artists who are specifically creating works for this exhibition. There's probably two or three. The reason I bring that up is because the works that are here have been selected specifically because they tie into some of the traditions. The way that this all started, the way that it all began, the way that this all began was at a dinner party, honestly. Cheryl and Richard are friends of mine, and they came over to a dinner party, and Cheryl had this wonderful, wonderful idea, and she's a great storyteller. She should probably be up here, actually. She's a great storyteller, and she was talking about her belly dancing class and how during one of the breaks she saw an article in Elle magazine that talked about belly dancing being a situation where people could be jailed or killed for doing that. And it horrified her, and she realized that there was a lot of things that she needed to look into. So she started doing some research and found that there were numerous criminal traditions that still continue today, and not only in other parts of the world, but here in the United States. Child marriage. Child marriage is one of them. Cheryl went on and on this afternoon talking to somebody, telling them that it's legal in, I want to say 47 and a half states, and I was concerned about that half. I didn't know how that happened. But there are 47 states it's legal for somebody to marry a child. That becomes an issue, right? And it's in our society. There are, obviously you've heard about human trafficking. There's been trafficking issues forever, and one of the issues that we talk about is human trafficking. The children being separated from their families on the border. You know, when you look at the piece, there's a piece in the back of the gallery. When you have a moment, take a look at it. It's a bunch of children. And that piece was actually about gun violence in Chicago. The artist is Teresa Hofheimer. Teresa does work, she's created a number of pieces over the last decade that deal with the idea of gun violence in Chicago. And the piece is called something to the effect of The Children That Are Left Behind. The sadness of it is that when I saw that after what happened on our southern border with the children being separated from their families, that's where that took me to. So all of these things are available. I mean, that's what's going on right now in the world. So Cheryl, she's at this dinner party and she says, I have this great idea. She tells me about the story about Elle magazine. She says, I have this great idea. And she was waiting, and she kind of told the story of what she was planning on doing, and she obviously needed a curator. I had been curating for probably 20 years at that point, so I knew a lot of artists. I knew where I could find the work. I knew how to get it done. I knew how to put shows together. Again, it goes back to talking about Penny and how wonderfully she put this together. I did all those things before, so when she was telling me her story, I knew that I would help. So I said, wait a minute, and I got up and I went and got a piece of paper and I started taking notes because she was telling me what she was planning. And the first exhibition that we wound up doing was at IIT Kent College of Law. I didn't set that one up, Cheryl did. And the benefit, the reason for why we did it at Kent College of Law was because it was all going to be future lawmakers. These are judges. These are people who are going to be dealing with the law. There were many struggles. We wound up doing a variety of things trying to get that show off the ground. It wound up working out just fine. And it was wonderful because all of a sudden we brought attention to, if we would have just talked to one person, we brought attention to the issues to people through the lawmakers, right? These are people who are going to be making laws for the next 20 years. So that was really our intention. One of the students who, I'm going to go in and out, one of the students who was back here looking at the work was talking about not being sure why, not having an understanding of what they were looking at. Like why there's such a variety, right? Because there's a huge variety of work here. And one of the things I always tell my students, I've been teaching for 30 years, one of the things I always tell my students is when you're looking at something that you don't understand, a piece of art that you don't understand, come up with 5 adjectives that describe it. So those of you, I know that there's some psych students and some sociology, I think. Those of you who are in the psych class, I think this will help you. Take a look at the work and come up with 5 adjectives that describe it. It will give you huge insight into what's going on there. So, for instance, these abstract paintings that are done by Anne Stefan Smith, or Anne Smith Stefan. I always get that mixed up. Smith Stefan. They're very ethereal. They look like landscapes. They could be desertscapes. But when you look at them, if you came up with 5 descriptive words, you'd come up with scraped and torn and painful. And when you look at them, seriously, take a look at them after we're finished talking. They're really beautiful, but they're about the wounds of life, the things that we deal with on a regular basis. You know, the struggles that we get through. Everybody's going to have problems in their life, and then eventually you get through them and you move on to the next problem, right? So the thing is that all of the works in this show are kind of touching on one of the criminal traditions. There are many of you who had spoken highly of Sergio Gomez's work, the ones with the butterflies. Wave at me if you liked that one. Okay, good. So there were a lot of people who were going, oh my God, that's really beautiful. I love that one. That's probably my favorite. What's that piece about? What are the descriptive words? Sorry? Yell at me. No descriptive words. You want to know what it's really about? You want to know why it's in this show. During the Holocaust, the kids who were in the camps, they would be drawing butterflies. So when they went and they opened, after the camps were closed down and they went through those camps, you knew, right? You knew, didn't you? I could see you go, yeah, I know. When they closed down those camps and they went in, they saw the kids would draw butterflies, and it was a sign of freedom. It was getting past that dark side. So when you look at that painting, when you look at that piece, that's what I see in it. I don't think that's what Sergio's intention was. Sergio, I mean, if you know anything about Sergio, his work he's prolific. He does hundreds of paintings a year, and they're on paper. And they all deal with the idea of an image that isn't necessarily there. There's a person, right? There's the figure that's there, but it's always just the silhouette. You never really see the entire piece. And they're really about him. All of those pieces are about him. And some of them are through his childhood, some of them are as an adult. But when he went into the butterfly thing, that was the only thing I could see. It's about transition, it's about movement, it's about, think about when you think about a butterfly and that transition from a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's the freedom. It's the freedom. So when I pick pieces, and I'm constantly looking for work, and I think there are 20 artists in this exhibition, do you know? It is 20? When I pick artists, it's not necessarily for any other reason than I'm gravitating towards something that they're doing. There's a beauty, James Debb. James Debb has, I think, 6 smaller pieces in this exhibition. And his work is kind of grim and dark, and it's also it's kind of got a little bit of humor in it. Because you can't look at something that's grim and dark without trying to find the humor in it. His images are thick and painterly, and they're gooey, when you look at the way that the surface is created. And when you think about that, the layers that we put on ourselves, how we keep control, hide, it seems so obvious that that's what those pieces are about. There's one called Mask. I think there's at least one called Mask. I have pieces from a lot of these artists in my own personal collection. And I have one of his masks that's truly a mask. But the paint becomes a mask in itself, right? Because it's the layer upon layer. Think about women putting makeup on, the layer upon layer. So these pieces are also really wonderful. They're Sheila Ganch. And Sheila's work, it's funny because again, she wasn't really dealing with the idea of the veil until after we've done a couple of these shows, and I think we've done 8 now. Sheila's work, there's ceramic stoneware, and she's decided to start using the figure and using that veil, the idea of the hijab, and wrapping the figure. And the reason that I'm so attracted to them is because when you get to the base of them, they're wrapped. They're not able to move, right? They're standing straight. There's nothing they can do. And that might be self-imposed, or it might be that somebody is trying to control them. The painting, I have one painting in the show. It's the figure behind you. And that painting is called Bound. And it is the back of a man, and there are ropes around the hands. The thing about that piece is when you look at it, and you say bound, okay, so that must mean that the figure is bound, right? But if you look at it, he's holding on to the ropes. Those ropes would easily fall if he wasn't holding on to them, right? The idea is that you're not necessarily bound unless you think you are. Some people choose to stay, to remain trapped in a situation. Do you see how all of these pieces kind of tie in and kind of flow back and forth? One of the things that you need, I can speak to my own work, but one of the things that you need to realize is that these artists are not really creating work for this show. It's just my perception of the work. One of the things I tell students when they don't understand art is that they should come up with their 5 adjectives, right? So what I would strongly suggest you do is while you're going through the show and you're trying to figure something out, and I know that it's uncomfortable because you're not used to looking at art, right? There's a lot of you who aren't. Come up with adjectives that try to describe what it is that you're seeing. Think about textures, think about surfaces, how it was done. Does it look loose? Does it look tight? Does it look like somebody was angry when they produced it? Is it so pristine? Right? So I need to open up the floor. What questions do you have? I'd be happy to help. And by the way, Cheryl Jefferson is here, and Cheryl Jefferson is like the guru on the criminal traditions. When we first started the show, she actually gave me a list of them. And I literally had a list of the traditions and definitions and what was going on in the world. And I would go and look for work that would be applicable to those traditions. So, and she continues to do research. We've done talks at the UN on the status of women. We've done that. We've spoken at many conferences, and it's always interesting to see different points of view as to why people think things work or why they don't work. Like, what is it that we're doing? So if you have questions specifically about some of the criminal traditions and what's going on in the world, Cheryl's the person to ask. And Richard Laurent is the painter who's actually obsessed with painting about the criminal traditions because he lives with Cheryl. So he's constantly listening to what's going on in the world. So, but if you think about it, he actually has a real interesting way of fixing that. Because if you look at his 3 paintings, there are 3 paintings in here by Richard, they're symbolic. They're metaphors. They're not literal. You can't figure them out. You know, you have to be able to figure out what's going on. Yes, ma'am?
Who owns this collection?
Who owns it?
Yes.
The artists.
So these pieces are on loan.
They're on loan. So, and each show that we create has a different body of work. So the work is constantly upgraded, constantly changed. People purchase from our exhibitions on a regular basis. And it's just a matter of I come up with new work and new groups of work. Because one of the things that I have to do as the curator is I have to figure out what's going to work together and how it's going to read as a story, right? So as you're going through this body of work, the one that we've selected for this exhibition, as you're going through it, I actually created a through line. I'm trying to think about how this is going to work, how it's going to look within any particular space. Does that help? Does that answer your question? What else? Really?
I have a question.
Yes.
It's more for the artist. I'm just curious because you curated it on your perceptions of their art. I'm just
Yep.
curious how they feel.
Well, let me tell you. There is a wonderful artist named Nancy Rosen. This white piece is hers, and there's a couple back there, and there's a red one right around this corner. Nancy Rosen is a Chicago artist. If anybody watches Netflix and you've seen Grace and Frankie? Do you know Grace and Frankie? Grace and Frankie is a show with Lily Tomlin. Lily Tomlin's character is a painter. Her paintings are Nancy Rosen's. So actually they use Nancy Rosen's studio, they like pulled things from Nancy. When Nancy dropped off a body of work for the first exhibition that we did for Breaking Criminal Traditions, she said, I don't get it. I don't understand why my work is part of this. And she doesn't see that it's about women and their relationships with other women, the pain in relationships. There's a beauty to this. If you look at her work, her history is all over them. At one point in her life, actually early on in her career, she was a wallpaper artist. She created textures and patterns for wallpaper. The white piece and the green piece down in the back, it's really obvious when you look at the backgrounds that that's where that comes from. But she just loves the figure, and she kind of deals with it in the sense of Shili, like the texture, the abstraction, the abstract quality of the form. So no, they don't. They know what I'm doing, but they don't necessarily agree with. Like they're not going, oh, okay, yeah, this is what this is about. Most of them are not. Joyce Palance, amazing, amazing artist. She's got a variety. There are two pieces in the show, both from two different bodies of work. The other one is much more, not this one, but the other one is much more what she's doing now, where there's a lot of pain and like tearing at the canvas with her fingers, like actually getting into the paint and like pulling on it. There's something really wonderful about that and real, you know, because she's making things and she's destroying them, and they're beautiful. This is typical of her older work, and she just, I was talking to somebody earlier today. She does these 8 by 6 foot paintings that were in this style, and she had a series of them that just opened in a show in Wisconsin, at a museum in Wisconsin. That was last month, I think. So, but no, they know, people know what we're doing. It's just a matter of lending their work so that it can actually open up a conversation. Other questions? I think we've stunned them.
Well, Chuck, Cheryl, and Richard will
Thank
be
you so
here,
much.
so please talk to them one-on-one if you have questions that you want to ask right now, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for coming.